Hi, and this is Brad Miles from the Andreas Mann team at Douglas Elliman Real Estate, coming to you live on Facebook. Happy holidays, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Good to see you. I'm here today with our monthly market report. And this month, before we look at our monthly market report, we're going to take a quick look at CoOp financial requirements, which is something we get a lot of questions about. So first, let's dive right in. We're asked very frequently, how much money do I need to buy a CoOp? And so there are some financial requirements when you're purchasing a CoOp in New York City, and I'll go through the three most common ones and their typical rates. So number one, when you purchase a CoOp in New York City, you need to make a down payment. Your typical down payment is 25% for a CoOp in New York City, but that number can range anywhere from, I've seen 20% on the low, all the way up to highs as high as 50% or even higher. Second financial requirement when purchasing a CoOp in New York City is a debt to income ratio. So this one's a little more confusing. And what does that mean? That means when you purchase a CoOp in New York City, CoOp boards like to see that the purchasers will be able to afford the apartment on an ongoing basis. And the way they do that is by typically requiring a debt to income ratio of 25% or less. So what does that mean? When you purchase a CoOp in Manhattan, you need to make monthly payments, and those will be either maintenance alone or maintenance plus debt service if there's a mortgage on the apartment. So let's say your maintenance is $1,000 a month and your mortgage payment is $1,000 a month. That's $2,000 a month. Thanks, I did that math for you guys, thank you. So with monthly payments of $2,000 a month, your typical New York City CoOp will want to see that you make at least $8,000 a month to be able to afford that. So that's the second factor. The third requirement when purchasing a CoOp in New York City is some type of post-closing reserves. So when you purchase a CoOp, you're making a big down payment, you're paying all your closing costs, and your typical CoOp board will want to see that you've got some cash left over after that to afford the apartment on an ongoing basis. And I'd say your typical numbers in New York City are usually 2 to 3 years worth of debt service left over post-close, but that number can range drastically up to very high amounts in Park Avenue apartments and the like. So it's very important that you work with someone who knows what they're doing when looking at these numbers. So for example, when we work with our buyers, we make sure they're looking at apartments that they fit in appropriately so they're not wasting their time. And on the flip side, when you're selling, you want to make sure that your buyers will end up fitting into these categories. So that's a look at CoOp financial requirements. Now let's take a quick look at Douglas Elliman's monthly contract sign report, which has got data from November. So this data is 30 to 45 days old at the most. So it's very accurate, very current. It's one of the best current pictures of what's happening in the market. So there are three things I want to point you to in this report, which you can download on my Facebook page, on our website. And the first thing that we saw in November is the beginning of a tale of two markets, and the market's starting to diverge. And when we look at the report, you see CoOp prices were up and condo prices were down. So you start to see a difference in those two categories. The second factor that's related in November's numbers is we looked at discounts on asking prices, and those were up in all categories, but they were up very steeply in the condo market versus only slightly in the CoOp market. So you're starting to see a difference between the CoOp and the condo market emerge. The last factor that I'll call your attention to in November's numbers is a look at absorption rates. And those we're seeing something that we've seen for several months now, and that is particularly in the sub $2 million categories, there's less than your typical average inventory for those categories, pointing to a potential strength for sellers in those categories. So sub 2 million is still very strong. The whole report's available online. Download it. Please call, email, text anytime if you have any questions. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you guys all have a great holiday. And again, we'd love to help you with the next real estate transaction anytime. Please reach out. Take care.